literally just about to start. Wife just walked in. All right. We are recording. That is recording. Everything is recording.
All right.
And there you go. I just sent the link live. I guess I got to send you the link somehow. What is the easiest way to do that?
Probably Messenger.
Yeah, Facebook Messenger. Okay.
Yeah.
Bam. Why is? Oh no, it still comes. The metadata is not right.
Oh yeah.
Hang on one second.
Guys, check out this live stream of Garrett.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was testing it out with him, and then let's see if I can. I have to refresh this. Let's see what happens if I refresh. Probably everything crashes all at once.
Total shutdown.
We tried real hard, guys. Okay, let me try this. See what that comes up as. No.
Pistonhead Productions Live, YouTube.
That should not be it. Everything's running. It's public. What happens if you click that link?
Let's see what it does. I got a invalid response received.
Perfect. Man, great start to this.
That's a great live stream.
Yeah. That's so weird. And it's just showing a black screen right now, but that's to be expected. So everything's public. I might have to try it on my phone or something like that. I just didn't want that. I don't know why it didn't update the metadata, that's all. But, you know what? Let's just go for it anyways. Come this far. All right, cool. I think we are up and operational, and all that I've got to do is... why is that doing that now?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, it's all good.
I sunk your battleship.
There we go. Oh, there we go. It is up and it is live, and everything looks like it's working properly. Cool. Alrighty, man. Let's get into this.
Is that the same link or what?
No, I'm going to give you a new one right now.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's get into this. So, who the hell are you?
I am Richard J. Hixon.
See, you do put the J in there. We were just talking about this. You definitely put the J in there.
Yeah.
That's all right. So how did we get in touch? So you were at Grid Life Atlanta, and you were driving the E30. Is an E30?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, it's a 1989 E30. It's the 325 IS, so it's the peppier one from the factory.
The peppier one.
It's funny, like a lot of like older like past middle-aged women like that owned one when they were middle-aged are like, oh, I love that car, it's so cute. Like I get that all the time in traffic. And I'm just like, if you could only know what it does.
You still deal with that thing?
Yeah, I daily that thing.
What? I have like the deepest fonding respect and also just like the total fear of daily driving a drift car. Like I've got a couple buddies that do it, and like they're slammed and they're just beat to hell, and I'm like, man, good for you, but I have zero intention to ever do that. Like,
I've owned the car for almost 10 years, and during the entire process, I was scared to work on it, like for the first 5-6 years.
Yeah.
But as I got involved with drifting and started breaking things and wanted to, continue, drifting, and I couldn't afford to pay a mechanic to do it, I started learning very rapidly, and it got to the point where, I could snap a rocker arm and have the engine back up in 2 weeks, in a process that required pulling the cylinder head and, fixing everything and putting it all back together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a pain, but it's better than paying somebody, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then it got to the point where you start doing these things in like a weekend,
Yeah, I remember my first engine pull took me like a week, and then by the time I was done, I could pull the engine in that car by myself in 6 hours.
Yeah, isn't it great when you know where every nut and bolt is?
Oh man, it's I've really only gotten that way with one car in particular, but I'm slowly getting there with other vehicles. My first build was a Mazda Protege 5, and I did like a Mazda speed swap on and stuff like that. So it was peppy. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it made good horsepower.
Yeah, probably a little more than the E30.
Well, what's the E30 making?
Factory spec is 164 horse torque. It's supposed to be a balanced engine for that car.
Supposed
to. This one is my second motor. The first one went out like a few months after the transmission. Okay. A little more than a year ago, right before I moved to Georgia from Texas.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it's a factory engine. You know, I just took that block and cylinder head, unbolted the intake, and then put my exhaust and intake on it, which was just a factory intake, but I had gone through and cleaned everything, and there was no road grime or anything like that.
That's not too bad.
Other than that, it just has like a ANSA catback exhaust and like a K&N filter with some upgraded injectors that are just like nozzled and stuff like that, and NGK wire set. So it's like super basic as far as the engine goes.
Well, I knew it was basic, but I did not know it was that basic.
Well, now there are some things that I've done that I've to modify it, so it's almost like a go-kart at this point.
Yeah.
The power steering's been deleted with a delete plate from Condor.
Okay.
So none of the lines or the reservoir, all that stuff's gone.
Okay.
I got tired of like I would run Texas events and people would like kind of drag the cones out on course. And I'll just be running my line and having fun, and I'll see a cone, and I'm like, I don't want to stop for that. And, the front would kind of clip over this cone that was already toned over on track, and it would kind of bump the power steering pump and knock it out of alignment to the point where all of the belts would throw.
Really? Is that a common issue on those?
It's not a common issue to my knowledge, but just in my particular scenario, it got annoying because I was tired of bending brackets and putting belts back on. Because none of the other pulleys really hung low on the car besides that one.
Oh, okay.
So once I deleted that, it freed up a little bit of drag on the power. It made it a lot harder to drive the car for the first couple of months. I went through kind of like a struggle period where, I didn't like go to the gym or anything, but it felt like it every day until I got used to it.
So does that involve looping the lines, or like I deleted the power steering on the Protege. I've deleted power steering on a couple of vehicles now. There's a couple of different ways to go about it, but I was just curious. So this is just like a block off plate. Do you depower
the block off plate? Has bypass holes that go through it to allow the air to travel back and forth, and then you leave just enough fluid for the lubrication.
Okay. So.
And that's made by Condor for the E30, and it works really great. I had it originally with just the belt disconnected from the pump and just kind of like drove the car like that and, manually pumped the fluid through the entire system every time I turned the wheel. And that was a lot harder than having a delete plate. So I would never, recommend doing it with just taking the belt off. You definitely want to go all the way with either like bypass on the loop, like you said, or do an actual delete plate.
Yeah, I've done the loop. I've also done deleting where the lines are and packing it full of grease. I think on the Protege one, it had a special set of gaskets that you had to get rid of, but I can't remember. It's been too long. Anyways,
there's just some of those dumb little details with the cars that you go through, and it's like a pain in the butt. And you're doing this project that should take 4 hours.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, it turned into the whole weekend because you made 5 trips to the parts store and need some special thing that you didn't know you needed before.
Man, welcome to my life. Like that is every time I tear into a car. It's like, I've got my tow rig's a 95 Suburban, and it's got a 6.5 diesel in it, which is awesome, but they're notoriously a pain in the ass. And I can't remember what I was doing. Oh, it had an exhaust leak. That's it. It's like an exhaust leak. I'm like, all I have to do is figure out what the exhaust leak is. It's causing the boost it's causing it not to spool up. And like a month later, I had rebuilt the entire like exhaust manifold turbo setup. And I was like, I did not mean to do that. Now, it was more of like, I'm in here. I might as well just replace this or replace that. But fuck, man, it sucked real bad. And I had to things. And then I was in a place where I couldn't even like, I wasn't at like a good shop. I was just at home in my driveway, and it wasn't at that point like everything's apart. So it's not even like if I run into a problem, I could take it to a friend's shop because nothing can tow it, and I can't get it onto a trailer. So I was like bringing buddies' torches over to try and get manifold studs out, and borrowed like a welder to try and weld one of the bolts out. Like, yeah.
Oh, you're full committed at that point once you break it down.
Oh man, and I should have known better. It's got 200,000 miles on it, and it's an old diesel. Like, the only benefit is that it was leaking so much diesel fuel all over the engine that most things were lubricated pretty well.
I will say, like, as far as the exhaust thing goes with studs breaking and stuff like that, my engine actually failed a week before moving to Georgia from Texas, and I was spectating Grid Life that year.
Okay.
And I had no idea the engine was going to fail. My buddies are like, "Oh, you're about to move to Georgia. Let's go street drifting one last time." And I go out and I'm ripping and I'm having a blast, And I get maybe like 2 solid laps in, and all of a sudden it's like somebody reached over and turned the key off, and the timing changer had snapped off at the base and failed on me. So we're swapping this engine in a hurry, and the headers that were on it were a little rusty, and they had cut the exhaust just south of the headers. And I plan on doing headers on the car later on down the road. So what we did is we ended up just putting the engine in with like that haggard little cut that they had.
Yeah.
And then I drove it to the exhaust shop like that with like basically like a straight downpipe, cut off with the actual ANSA catback exhaust like in my car, and then had it like cut and Frankenstein together at the exhaust shop. And that's how it's been ever since. I just never ended up doing the headers.
It doesn't sound terrible. Like, it could sound better, but I've heard way worse. It could be a straight pipe VQ.
Yeah. No, I mean, at this point, it's just got that catback exhaust, so it's super quiet. But I'll say when it was like cut off a foot south of the header, it was so incredibly loud. I had a droning headache. After the exhaust was all welded up and super quiet, I still had a headache on the drive home.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
My Thunderbird, it's just straight off the turbo. Like, it basically drops down and then goes back by like 8 inches, and that's it. But that's fine. It's it's turbocharged, so it muffles in a lot of sound.
Yeah,
and it sounds fairly good for being a very tractory type of sound. So, okay, I once heard a phrase, and it was, have you ever seen a turtle on a post? You don't know.
I haven't heard that one.
No, you don't know how the turtle got there. The turtle doesn't know how it got there, but it's fucking crazy either way. So I gotta ask, what's the story behind getting into Grid Life Atlanta? Because for people who don't know, you pretty much stole the show in that very stock E30. I mean, like, I was in the media area the entire time, and everyone was going nuts. Like, you probably couldn't hear it from the car, but like, people were cheering for you more than most of the pros. Other than
I heard it, especially like Friday and Saturday.
Yeah. So, like, the application process and like to get into Grid Life has become notoriously difficult. And I'm not saying that you're not of the caliber to drive that, but it seemed a little out of place until like 4 laps in, and then we're like, oh shit, never mind. I'm trying to put this like as politely as possible, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
What's the story? Like, so how did you hear about Grid Life? Give me the rundown from first Grid Life experience to becoming a crowd favorite very quickly.
All right, so basically it kind of goes back to that whole engine blowing and moving back to Georgia thing. I was driving in Lone Star, Texas Drift Fest, and competed in D1 Mid-South Street Legal back in 2016. Yeah. So I had a lot of experience in the Midwest that nobody in the East Coast really knew about. So I did all those things. Right before I moved back, I'd gotten really active with YouTube and collaborated with a few friends, and we made a really cool like driver feature video of myself and kind of like the elements, the essence of a Lone Star drift event, if you will.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like our last final video project, and it was a really good one. And I had kind of tied that in on my application process, and showed like what I could do with the car and stuff like that, because the video is no better way to show it than that. A photo can show a run where you might have spun and still make it look cool, but video doesn't lie.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And
So,
Lone Star develops an amazing amount of quality drivers.
mhm.
Aaron's a polarizing figure in the drifting community, but you can't take away from the fact that he's developed a long line of great drivers. He's continuing to do it. His events are incredible. I've never been to one. I've only chatted with him briefly, but
Mhm.
the shit he's doing.
I
is
never
awesome.
competed in Lone Star. Because the cars never actually had a cage.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So it was a big thing even when they did the Texas Street Legal Series that they wouldn't allow me to compete in that particular arena.
Which is fine, and I get that, and that's I agree with that to an extent.
Right, and so did a lot of people. So from 2014 when I first started to 2016, I had done no tandems really, but then Texas Drift Fest collaborated with D1 SL to do the Mid South Series.
Okay.
And they said, we're going to do a street legal series with cageless cars. It's going to be the first one of its kind in Texas in a long time. And the winner is going to get a prize package to where they get a trip to Japan.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, I finalized in fourth, so I didn't get that trip to Japan. One of my best friends, however, did, so I'm super proud of him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, me and him were like, every round, like we were top 4. It was so crazy.
And Ibizu circuit, dude, like that's Mecca for drifters.
So, I got a lot of experience with tandem as the series went. We had 5 rounds, and by round 1, like everybody was timid. By round 5, I was running close proximity with swap 240s that you would never imagine a stock E30 running with.
Yeah.
And back then, the car wasn't even on the coilovers. So it was really like, don't spill your coffee on that one. It was pretty insane. Like the car even had a goofy setup. It was taller in the rear than it was in the front. It was like drag stance. It was super hilarious. It would body roll. All the hater dudes would give me crap for it.
You know what though? If it works, right? Like
I had fun and I just kept pushing myself, and it got to a point where a few buddies like just pushed me hard enough to where they're like, you just need to do coilovers and finally do it, because your car has poly bushing, strut tower braces, sway bars, the whole nine, everything but coilovers. Yeah. Wow. And ever since those went on the car, that's like the second event that I ran is the event where we collaborated in that really cool video. And at that point, I'd gone from battling a car for 3 years to having a car that would do what I wanted to. And I could just drive perfect from that point. Like, I hate to say it like that, but I probably went the whole weekend and maybe spun once, and it was because the tires were dead. And we had every condition, we had rainy, we had wet with sun out, we had wet with clouds, we had dry with no water on the track. And it was just a really well-versed weekend with lots of different tires, and had a lot of fun. The coilovers would just let me kind of like toss the car in, and it would just stay where I wanted it to, and it was this really impressive feeling. The old body roll, it would like you'd toss it in, and it might do what you wanted it to, or it might sling back and go the other way, and you might have to throttle over again and try and fight that entry.
It's like you're doing what Vaughn Gittin and Chelsea are trying to emulate, like the weight jacket, just left to right instead of front to back.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
That's crazy.
It's always just been fun for me, So I did the one comp series, and that's been it as far as that goes.
So how did you hear about Grid Life then? This was before, like when you were living in Texas, or how's that all come
up? So I actually grew up in Georgia, and I moved to Texas right before my 21st birthday. Okay. And then decided right before my 29th birthday that I would be moving back to Georgia when the whole engine blew and everything. And my buddy's like, hey, you're moving back. There's this cool event at Road Atlanta called Grid Life. There's going to be drifting. Some of the FD cars will be there. Some of the guys I know from around here, like Garage Moon Power, are going to be out there. And I actually know those guys. They're really cool guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he's like, man, you got to check this out. Get a spectator pass. My buddy can get you hooked up. And I went and I checked it out. I went all 3 days. I got like a YouTube video on my channel. It's kind of crummy because I made it with my phone. I didn't really have anything after I moved. And I kept my spectators pass. This has been my keychain.
Yeah, I recognize that.
That's been my keychain ever since. Like I was obsessed. Like I just saw everybody ripping.
Is that the first year?
So yeah, this is my first year, which is not this Grid Life that we just had, but the year before.
Okay, so you didn't you missed the first year of Grid Life set, but you okay, gotcha. I'm just trying to get the timeline right, that's all.
Right. So I went to the last Grid Life that was at Road Atlanta. And I was like obsessed, and I was like, man, that was awesome. And I've just like had this as my keychain and been like thinking about it constantly. And then I don't know, maybe it was a little before March or something like that. I heard about the application program, and one of my buddies who runs a like local drivers club, it's called iTrack Motorsports, was like, hey, you know, you should apply for it. Like people were saying stuff about the cages, but I'm going to tell you, like I saw cars out there last year without cages, and like if they approve you, like that means that you're good enough to be on the track. And so I went ahead and did the application process, you know, laid out, you know, all the different series I'd driven with, where I'd been in Texas. I just moved out this way, been driving with iTrack for a year. You know, ever since I came here, like these dudes do tandems like every event. If you get up into the advanced group, you're gonna be like banging doors and like trains like every event. It's pretty crazy. But so basically, I just did a lot of those events, and it was fun. Got my confidence up and stuff, and then you know did the application for Grid Life, and just kind of crossed my fingers and you know hit the enter button per se, or sent it, and you know, next thing I know, like, I guess it was March or something like that, I saw people posting on Instagram, like, oh, I got a Grid Life approval, you know, better check your emails.
Yeah.
And I was like, the people that are posting this, they have, like, V8 swapped, like, E36s and stuff like that. I'm talking about my buddy Spencer Smith. I'm sorry, that's not his last name. It's Spencer. I can't say his last name. He's Brazilian though. If you saw him at Grid Life, he was in like the blue E36 vert thing with like the white cage inside of it.
Got the big wing on the back.
Yeah, with the big wing.
Yeah,
okay,
I got
so I saw his post where it was saying he was approved, and I was like, all right, let me go ahead and check my email, like jokingly, and like I just kind of scrolled through, and it was like Grid Life approval, and I was like, WTF? And I clicked on it, you know, and it was like right there, you know, sure enough, the real deal. Like, you've been approved for Grid Life. Use this, you know, promo code or whatever.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was this year.
It was Turn 12 Smokies was the promo. That was the promo code to get in. Like, I was like, I don't understand Turn 12 Smokies. I mean, I guess there's 12, you know, turns, but this ain't the Smoky Mountains. It's a little further south, you know.
Yeah, Turn 12 Smokies. Well, do you know what Turn 12 is now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the turn that I was drifting down that I was told after the event most people wouldn't even touch.
Yeah, that was first done by my buddy Riley Sexsmith, who runs Pro 2. He was the first guy to ever drift that corner. And I've told this story on the podcast a few times, but I was standing on the bridge. I just happened to be there. I was just watching cars come down the hill. And we heard a 2J come down the hill, and like it's a distinctive sound, and just wind up, and we're like, shit, that 2J just skipped the keyhole, like you're waiting to hear it, and all of a sudden I see Riley's STI come flying over the top of the hill, and like as the car starts to settle coming over that ridge, you just see the back tires smoke up, and I'm like, oh shit, and like at first we thought he was just gonna hit the wall, like he fucked up, something happened, no brakes, whatever, and then you see him sliding more and more and more and more. And then it's just like a perfect drift out of it. I'm like, holy shit. Like, no.
That's intense.
Yeah, and we knew they were going to do full course drifting, but like, you know, you expect the guys to manji the straight or go into turn one and do it up the hill. I don't think anybody would try that, but sure as shit, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Riley.
That's insane. I wish my car could do crazy things like that. I just give it as much throttle as I can and let the momentum carry it.
Yeah, and you did really well. So, I gotta ask, like, how many PSI are in those tires?
Okay, so this is actually funny because I met Aaron Losey back at FD. You know, like I said, I've been driving in his series, and he was jokingly like, I was talking to him and I was like, hey, you coming back for Grid Life later? And he was like, no, I heard the seat time wasn't really where it was at last year and blah, 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 which they fixed this year. Everybody knows that. But he was like, oh, so are you going to try it in the E30? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, you better put 1,000 PSI in there. And he kind of like laughed at me and then just like blew me off the rest of the weekend or whatever. And I was like, man, like I kind of came to like Grid Life with a chip on my shoulder because of that, I think. I was just kind of like, I'm going to prove this fucking guy wrong. Like, excuse the French, but like,
you're good. We swear all the
I was like, I'm sorry, dude. I've been running this car hard for a long time. Nobody's going to tell me that I need more than 35 PSI in the rears.
Is that how you ran?
And,
35 PSI?
So, no, I mean, I warmed up on 35, and by the end of the weekend, I had them drop down to 25 PSI once they got warmed up.
What size tire?
So I start on a 195 50-15 when I have matching wheels on. And then once I run out of those, I have 14-inch stock bottle caps that I put 195 60-14s on.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
When you're going fast enough, nobody really can tell.
No. I wasn't looking at that, but that's, hey, whatever, man. I think it was really good. Like, it was really good to have that mix of cars out there because there are people out there who think Grid Life's already starting to lose its way, like getting away from grassroots drifting. Like the first 2 years in Michigan, like there was a couple of pros out, but it's not like it is now. Now it's 50-50 pros and other drivers. And most of the other drivers are either way up in Pro-Am Series, Pro 2 licensed, or competing in Pro 2. So to have a couple of guys out that are not at that, I don't want to say caliber because that's the wrong word, but at that level in their career to come out was really cool. Like that's for sure.
Yeah, they said, that they had picked a few, select people to kind of mix it up.
Yep.
And basically if you were there, you were a ripper. It doesn't matter what your experience is, where you've been, what you've done. You were picked because you're a world-class driver, and we're all there to put on a good show. And that's what we did.
Yeah, it was an amazing show. The only criticism I think I give any of the drifting is, as much as I love trains, to try and film trains is quite possibly the biggest nightmare in the world. Because, like, by the time the first two cars go by, the rest of the train's gone. Like, there's nothing there.
There were several laps where I would, toss it in third. And because of the no cage, this was the last year that they were going to do no cages. It's going to be very strict about cages next year, which actually has prompted me to finally want to put a cage in my car because Grid Life's worth it. So, like I said, I've always done it for fun. So this is something that's fun enough to be like, okay, I'll put a cage in there to have fun.
Yeah. Well, it's a good idea as well, just in general. Like, I've driven
for safe
non-cage cars. And I can say that I feel a lot better in a cage car than I do in a non-cage car. Although,
honestly, daily in the car too, it would make me feel safer just to know, like, if some Yukon or something came smashing into me, I'd be a lot better off.
Are you dailying that car by choice or by circumstance or everyone's got their own.
It's kind of like a circumstance / choice.
Like you probably could get another car, but you're just like, I don't really want to.
It'd just be too difficult right now with my circumstances, but. Like, okay, so back in Texas, I had a 1988 E28 that I actually, like, painted the same, had the same pinstripe on the car, and this is back before the E30 had all the different stickers from the series I run and stuff like that on it. So it was a little more basic. So the cars looked almost identical, except one's a big old four-door classic, like, you could pull up next to, like, a Bentley and feel, like, just as important as that dude, It's just like E28s are so majestic like that. It's just like this big old,
I've never heard of them called majestic, but hey, whatever.
I don't know. Like, it's just an awesome car. Like, and it was a great car. Like, this one had a clean interior, all the accessories, and the sunroof worked. Like, you could, open up the sunroof, drop all four windows, turn the radio up, and go riding down the streets of Houston and just feel like, you might have like $1 million in your pocket, but you could have a 20 in your bank account and that's it, Exactly. the car came out that good, and that was my daily until the move. I had to sell it to a friend, and I just didn't have a way to transport it or a place to put it. Once it got here and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that BMW might have been like the biggest. If you invested in BMWs to like gain a profit on them, you've lost everything.
If you invest in them to drive them, you gain everything.
That is true, though. That is true. I have never seen a vehicle crash in price so quickly and so heavily. Like E36s, I can get one. Man, I could jump on a buy and sell right now and find 6 of them for $500.
Oh yeah, they're so ridiculously cheap.
They drift. Like if you can find an M3, awesome. Like that, you just weld the diff. You're
good. If you get a regular E36 and you have a little bit of welding knowledge, so you can reinforce those weak points on the subframes, so
they don't pull through the hole.
So they don't pull through the hole like half the season in. Then you're gonna have a lot of fun. With a cheap car. And maybe you got a buddy who can weld it for you,
you weld those in, throw some window weld where the bushing should be, weld the diff, go buy a $100 rad, and you're good to go. Like that's anybody who asks me like, oh, I want to get into drifting, what do I buy? I'm like, buy a stock E36, weld the diff. Like
there's actually a fun fact about my E30 is I got it from my wife's stepdad, who gave it to us when we moved out to Texas because our vehicle's transmission failed on the way there and we had to sell it, and it was just like a crap box.
That's crazy.
And so I've just been driving this thing ever since, and just about every component on the car has been replaced at this point, even like the front glass on the windshield and such. But one of the few components that's been on the car the entire time is the diff and the OEM bushing, which is completely buried in window weld.
It works so well.
It's never been unbolted from the car. Everything else has been pulled and replaced.
People shit on that. I'm like, if you want cheap, decent bushings, just go buy a tube of window weld and go to town.
I'm saying, man. I don't even think this is actually window weld. I think I used like the high tension gasket maker.
Oh man, it's heat resistant.
And I just filled in every hole on the bushing and like every hole in between where the bushing and the mounting bracket went until it was just one big solid triangle.
Perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
And it's worked for like 2 years now, and I've got a poly bushing that I've been sitting on in my Majestic box of E30 parts that I basically know what breaks on an E30 because of all the drifting and stuff. So I have like a box of like things that break on an E30 or make it not run good to where you can't get home.
Yeah, that's
and I just like take that with me when I go to events.
That's key with drifting is like understanding your car is going to break and bring the parts that are going to break. Like I'm fully aware of what I need to bring to a drift event now because it's like, yep, I've blown this, I've blown that, I've blown that. I know what I'm going to be doing parts runs for. I know what I can find and what I can't find. Like,
I always have a rear axle and a tie rod.
All right, perfect.
That's
I
guaranteed.
usually carry spark plug wires, distributor caps, and rotors because as the engine heats up, it just melts things.
Yeah, I try to keep all those, and then I keep like my OEM injectors in case I ever have an injector failure. I'll just replace them all right on the spot.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
I've seen people like have their day ruined from like a clogged injector, and it's like you paid your driver's fee, you're out there, you got your tire stacks, the car's unloaded, you're ready to rip. And then you're like sitting there because nobody's gonna have a full set of injectors in stock.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And you don't.
They always have like 2 or 3 at like the local AutoZone.
Match them either. It's just asking for trouble.
Does this one look less dirty? We can take the cleaner looking ones and put those with the 3 new ones from AutoZone, and then we could probably get 2 laps.
I remember seeing a buddy of mine like had a plugged injector, plugged a positive and negative lead to it so it would open, and then like swished it back and forth in some Varsol. And he's like, "That's all I can do." I'm like, "If it works, man, like I've seen crazier things work, but send it."
That's more than I know about them. I just replace them if they're bad, send them to a rebuilder.
You can trigger them to open and stay open, but you risk like melting them because they're not meant to stay open like that. They're meant to pulse, right?
Right.
But you can kind of do it quick and clean them off or run some brake clean through. It's not a great idea, but in a bind, it's going to work.
I've like sprayed a nozzle in a bind, but I've never really tried to like force it open or anything like that. That's more than I'm willing to do.
Oh man, that's crazy, man. Well, that's a nut story though. Like that. Yeah.
That's the only way I've trusted to like daily the car is because I literally have like a spare everything, even a spare trans, because when the trans broke, I had so much trouble finding one that I ended up finding two on the same day, and I decided to just take them both because I couldn't find any more. and one of the spare one is like actually the spare one is the one that I bought locally in Houston, and then the one that is in the car currently got like hot potatoed from FD Florida to Houston, Texas, because I had buddies that were in town that went there to go spectate FD.
Oh, okay.
My buddy Thomas Tyrone, who's he's a pro or was a pro-am driver in the Lone Star program. He's kind of like an older dude, like his son drifts, and he decided to get into it, and then he ended up being decent at it. And he's like a really awesome dude. Like he'll make you laugh every time if you ever met him, like every time you talk to him, he'll make you laugh. Or if you see his like videos on YouTube and stuff, he had like a driver feature video that's pretty funny on the Lone Star channel.
Huh? That's
somebody messing with you there.
My wife. She's like across the room.
Oh, you're good.
She always finds it funny when I do these kind of things. So.
No, that's cool. I'm like, hey man, I got this trans. This guy's over in Panama, and he's willing to drive like an hour north to meet you on the interstate if you can pick this trans up on your way back from FD. And then Tyrone lived out like southeast of Houston, like 2 hours outside of town. So my buddy who was helping me swap the trans over at his house ended up driving after it hot potatoed from Panama to the interstate, and coming from Florida, it like went all the way over almost to Houston. And then my buddy went and like drove 2 hours across, grabbed the trans, and then 2 hours back home. And then we towed the car like across town down to there. And then it was like this crazy mad shuffle to do a trans swap.
That's it's amazing.
It was a lot of phone calls. It was like really like stressful. Like, nobody mess this up. Please be where you need to be on time.
Just orchestrating it like logistics.
Yeah, because it ended up passing over 3 people's hands before it got to me. And then the owner of the trans was none of those people.
At no point in time did the owner actually. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, the owner lived like an hour north of Houston, and he only charged me $100 for the trans.
Wow, so it's worth it.
And I paid him, and I didn't even have to pay him until like 2 weeks after the trans was in the car, because I was kind of going through some stuff. Like, it was kind of like unexpected. I'd just gone out all in to like travel to a Lone Star event and stuff like that, and it was like, blammo, you're stuck in second gear, getting towed 5 hours home.
That's yeah.
But it always somehow works out. Like, somebody always like. I know there's some people that are like, I don't do social media, I don't do Facebook, and I'm like, I just don't know how you do, because I've met so many people in the community that are willing to help you. If you just make a post, somebody's going to reach out, whether they're going to charge you, give you a good deal, or maybe even, offer to just give you something if you're like, help them out somewhere down the road. Like, everybody helps everybody. And if you like accept that mindset and apply it, it really happens.
Yeah, drifting's weird in its culture in that way.
I've been really humbled by like the things people have done to help me, and I've got friends who will fab, stuff in my car. I got a buddy who gave me a bumper like 2 weeks before Grid Life, and then my wife like helped me buy trim pieces to put it on there, because the whole back of the car looked almost totaled like a month before Grid Life.
Yeah, it looked pretty clean once it showed up.
Yeah, thank you. I put a lot of hard work and time. We were living paycheck to paycheck just to get the car ready for that.
It's
I literally had like $80 in my bank account after the end of the weekend at Grid Life. Like, we're fully vested on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that happens to. That's for sure. I know quite a few.
So like when like people like yourself started hitting me up and like, hey, I'm gonna hook you up with this video or these pictures, it was like, oh man, like even if I wanted to, I couldn't pay you for this. So like, thank you so much. Like, you have no idea.
There's a bunch of people that don't worry.
I'm sure. I've paid, I've paid for plenty of footage out in Texas.
Yep.
Tyler Coe does really great work. He's done stuff for me. There's actually one of my driver fishing videos is nothing but his footage. Really great stuff.
Some good power hour footage, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'd say you guys definitely have some comparable shots and styles with the slow mos and stuff like that.
Fucking nerded out. As soon as I bought this camera and it was able to do slow motion like that, not just like there's lots of cameras that do slow motion, but it'll do slow motion like so crisp, and it's just like now that's all I want to shoot to a detriment. Like I'm just filling cards up. Like I'll go and shoot like one drift session at FD, and it's like boom, 64 gigs, like just gone. 15 cars in. And I'm like, where the fuck's it all going? I'm like, oh yeah, like this thing just fills the card every time. But yeah, it's interesting too because now I've started having people contact me for slow motion footage. I don't know if I can say who, but anyways, I've had 3 pro drivers contact me asking me about slow motion footage because they use it to find things, to find problems in the car and stuff like that. Like if it's a good in focus, slow motion, they can watch suspension travel, they can watch the exhaust, they can watch the angle of the car, the yaw, the pitch, everything. So
it's very true. I have to say that's been one of the biggest key elements. Running an E30, everybody's always been like, oh, the M20 doesn't have power. You need to turbo it or swap it or something. And I just would always, go back and look at YouTube and try to find videos of myself driving and look at like, okay, where am I screwing up on this course? What am I doing? How can I improve that? Even if I take the footage and copy it and slow it down. And the guys that actually shoot the slow-mo made it really easy. So then you go back and like look at all this and study it and then apply it, and you can go back and actually, drive and improve what you're doing based off of that footage. So it's a really great tool.
Yeah.
It's more than just identifying what's wrong with the car, but you can identify what the driver is doing wrong, which I think is the most important part.
Yeah, for sure. It's driver input. The most fascinating one was a driver asked me for the footage because he wanted to see how smoky the exhaust was because he was concerned that his AFR gauge wasn't reading true. So like he asked me for like and if you do some digging you can figure it out. It's not that hard, but anyways, I'm not here to anyways.
No, that's a very specific request though. That tickled my fancy, I guess.
Of like when you took this video. Can you let me know exactly what run, what time of day, like the more information you can give me about this run, the better. So I was able to go through the camera and like go, oh, okay, this is the time that this shot was taken. I sent it to him, and then he linked that up with the data logging from the car and watched the exhaust to figure out, because like visibly it was running too rich, like significantly too rich, like black smoke coming out of a wastegate. So he's like,
my goodness.
I mean, I can only assume he's probably like, well, I don't remember seeing an AFR that rich. So why is it showing like this? But my AFR at no point in time said that I was running that rich. So yeah, I was like, shit, I've never even.
So we're identifying like a faulty computer component.
Yeah, exactly. Like, your gauges
That's
are
wild.
only as good as their sensors. Really.
That's true.
I think that's true. People forget about it. Like, oh my, especially AFR. Like, that's not one to fuck around with. Like,
that is one thing. Like, kind of going back to earlier with saying E36s are good cars to start out drifting with. You got to watch that temp gauge because it's a dummy light on those cars. Like, I would add a mechanical gauge like right away so that you know what you're actually running at.
A threshold gauge, not a sweeping gauge. Where it's like cold, okay,
yeah,
blown head gasket. Like, those are your 3 options. So,
cold, okay, blown head gasket. I like that.
There's lots of cars that do that. They're like, oh, my temperature gauge is just above normal, and it's like, look, it's if it's getting to just above normal, that means it's on its way to being buried. Like, there's no threshold to it. Those gauges, no sensors are expensive. It's a 3-position switch. That's it. So yeah, it's anyways, yeah. So like stuff like that, or I shoot for Riley Sexsmith a lot, and he was at Grid Life in the
orange thing, right?
Yeah, the Subaru.
I think I actually got to run a couple runs behind him, and it was pretty fun. It's spaced out, of course, but
well, him and a lot of guys.
You know, he would just rip through there.
Yeah, him and a lot of guys are big proponents of exactly what it is that you're doing. Like drive an underpowered car for a while, and then once you get to a point where you can drive a more powerful car, you are that much further ahead. There's a lot of guys I find right now who are like, oh, I've drifted 2 events, and now I'm going to drop an Iron Block LS into my FCRX7. It's like, yeah, that's a great drift car, but you should be running that FCRX7 or that Miata or that 240 whatever at as little power as possible for like a year or two, and learn that car, what it's like when it doesn't have power. And then once you have power, now you can push yourself faster through those corners.
Yeah.
There's so many drivers that started out that way, and now because drifting has come along over the last few years, people know what the formula is. Because back in the day, it was just like, fuck, get a car that's rear wheel drive, make it slide. Now we're like, oh, this is how you want 1,000 horsepower reliable drift car. Okay, this is what you do. S13, 2J, rear mounted rad, WISE fab, fuel suspension. Okay, boom, you've got a perfect Pro 2 car. And I find just people with money or a lot of ambitions are just like, that's what I'm going to build right away. I'm going to learn how to drift. This is what you drift in. It's like, yeah, but now, one, how do you afford to run that car with no backing because you just got into drifting? So you're going to blow through a set of 235s in 3 laps, so that's fun. And then you've got fuel, and then when shit breaks on those cars, it's way more expensive, whereas somebody who starts off in a low-powered Nugget, if you will, you're running 14s and 15s, and I'm sure you run a bunch of half burns like I do because they're free or fucking dead nuts cheap, and you're getting seat time and you're building up your ability. And then once you get to a point where you're in a car with a lot of power that has wise fab and has proper tuned suspension, it's like, oh shit, I don't have to work as hard now. Like I get to do exactly what I was doing before, but with 30% of the effort, and now I can take that 70% left over and use that to develop into becoming a better driver.
It's just like when I, forced myself on stock for so long, and then I finally added coilovers. It was like the biggest difference in the world.
It's running with the weight.
And most people don't go that route, but I did.
I'm getting ready. So next weekend we have an event series called Top Drift, and it's it's about as grassroots as you can get. Like we every once in a while we'll have a guy that comes out that runs like a Pro-Am series, or Riley Sexsmith comes out every once in a while, but very, very rarely. And it's like, bring whatever you can drive. Like bring an E30.
Run what you bring.
E36, no cage, welded diff, no tech inspection, get out on track, just don't leak fluids. And that's their thing. It's like, look, your car's not, the track's not so fast that you're going to hurt yourself majorly. Like there's only one wall, and there's no real way to get enough speed to like crush the car. Like it reminds me, it's like
that
a
makes
bigger
sense.
park, if I had to relate it to anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of haggard cars for lack of a better term. But it's developing a lot of great drivers. So Riley Sexsmith comes from that program. Dylan Sharp, I don't know if you know who that is. He ran the 2J.
The name's familiar.
S15, super clean. He was at Grid Life last year. A lot of guys have come from there. I know I'm missing a bunch. Brent Stratton, Josiah Falese. There's a lot of guys that come out of that, and some of them will be coming out in the next year or two.
A lot of guys just kind of pumping out of there because they're able to do these, low budget seat time cars where they can learn what they're doing with their driving.
$190 for a weekend. It's 2 8-hour drift days, and it's hot lap. There's no line. Like the lineup you might sit in is 10-15 minutes. Like the guy.
That's pretty solid value. Most events you're not going to get more than 6 hours for $100.
It's a track. Like it's not a parking lot. It's got runoffs. It's got a bunch of shit. So I don't know. It's just a really, really cool place to develop drivers. As much as it gets shit on for having like these hoopty cars, it's man. And dude.
It happens,
Actually, funny story. Do you watch any of Aaron Lousey's videos?
I used to. I haven't really watched him in a little while.
Earlier this year, an epic, like I think it's an hour and 20-minute video about him drifting in Canada. He goes to this event, and like you see the hoopties that are in it. Now, I'm not like the biggest fan of how he covered it, because he made us look pretty bad. But we looked pretty bad in general, so he just showed it. You know what I mean? It was like our own hidden,
Yeah.
like it's
Like he could have churched it up a little, but he
did.
was just like, "This is how crummy their stuff looks."
And a lot of it is because we have a lot of rust here, so there are a lot of rusty vehicles. They're
It's the North, man.
yeah. So, anyways, I'm happy that he came out and experienced it. I wish he would have experienced a slightly more prestigious event than Top Drift, but it's good. It's good for the community for people to see all aspects of it. So you can't hide it. You know, it's going to be a dirty little secret, but eventually people are going to find it one way or another.
That made sense.
It's a blast. If you ever can, I highly recommend you come up here for one of these weekends. Even if you can just drive up and I'll find you a car, it's crazy.
That would be
It's a
fun.
long drive though. Texas is like 20 something hours. So.
Well, I'm in Georgia now.
I'm in
it's
Georgia
19,
now,
my bad.
so
So it's 19.
yeah. So I would totally probably just take a plane.
Yeah.
At that point. I got a buddy in Texas. He's working things out to where he can get 2 of his cars running, and then I can fly out and drive one of his
That'd be pretty
cars,
sweet.
and it would actually be caged. So we're thinking about maybe doing like, I don't know, like a Lone Star Texas Street legal round, and just like randomly pop in and kind of mess with the points a little bit, you know. Like, hey guys, remember me? I'm driving somebody else's car.
So what is the plan with the car now? Like keep driving it, slowly add things to it, build something else? Where are you at with it?
So there's really not a whole lot of planning right now. There's just little aesthetic things I want to make cleaner. I'm considering caging the car. There might be like a power build in the future on a separate chassis. It's kind of like a super secret project, so I'm not really going to get into it. But like a couple of good friends have made some possibilities, you know, or made something, you know, possible that maybe wouldn't have been before, and it's an option that's on the table.
Well,
But it's a lot of work to get there. But at the end of the day, I still want to cage the E30, so I really don't know which way I'm going to go yet, because I kind of enjoy driving the low power car and just, you know, making it work.
on it, man. That is what I tell everybody.
I have jokingly like talked about like doing like a wet system and just running like a 50 shot for when like I need a little more power for those third gear sweepers, or maybe like, you know, hitting fourth down the S's at Road Atlanta. But
as much as this sounds like a
you know,
and this company has helped me in the past openly, but I'm currently under no contractual obligation to say this. Go get a Nitrous Express Proton kit with a 10-pound bottle. It's a couple $100. It installs super fucking easy, and you can pipe in up to I think 175.
Wow.
And it's
wow,
one controller.
yeah, I would never put more than like a 50, probably, maybe even like a 25.
If you really wanted to be, it could be 3 wires to wire the whole thing.
I've already, like, that engine's so go-karted. Like, there's no AC on it, no power steering, and the mechanical fan's been removed. So it's just like water pump and an alternator. So there's really nothing to like fail, like if you spin it too fast, you know.
That's awesome. There's something to be said about a basic build, that's for sure.
Well, you know,
the thing is, like, and I was even watching, the live stream for the Pro-Am competition they just had over here at Linear Raceplex. And then we got to drive the Sunday Fun Day. This last weekend here. And I saw one of the posts from the drivers where he was saying that his power steering cooler had started leaking, and people were commenting, talking about, you know, whether he should delete the cooler so it can continue to run for the weekend and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting there laughing the entire time because my power steering is 100% deleted, so I don't have to worry about deleting a cooler, or if a line leaks, or if the pump is failing, or any of that crap that everybody's commenting about. And I'm just looking at like 100 different potential problems that I just don't deal with. So the struggle of having to, you know, use a little more muscle to turn the wheel, I think in the long run, for me at least, has paid for itself because I don't have to deal with those little breakdowns and dumb things that power steering systems do.
Yeah, that's a solid point. And I think
I'm sure there's a time and a place for them, but in my application, that it's just not there. It's more headache than benefit.
If you're not feeling it, if it's not affecting your driving, then fuck it, right? Might as well keep it deleted.
Right. It was funny. There was a post the other day where I had commented, or I'd made the original post, and I was like, "Hey guys, thinking about deleting the power steering on the E30." This was 2 years ago when I originally did it. Do you guys know if there's any power gain benefits? I know it would be very small, but what do you think?
Every little bit counts. That's
right. Yeah, and it's like if you have a treadmill running, the more weight you put on it, like the more power it's going to sap from that motor. So if you start taking weight off of that treadmill and put like a 90-pound kid on there instead of a 300-pound dude, it's probably going to spin a little bit faster.
That makes sense.
So I've just like deleted everything off of there, and it's saved me a lot of headaches and failures at the track. And then the coolant system is nothing but a full aluminum radiator, with your upper and lower hoses, and then the heater is all deleted. So it's really just go-karted out.
Do you remove your thermostat?
I do run a thermostat, but I'd use a bypass hole so that there's constant flow.
There's kind of like a back and forth. I've heard guys say, if you don't run it, you're going to kill your engine because it's not going to heat up fast enough, and yada yada yada. And I've heard guys say, well, the damage to that is negligible if you overheat the engine, and having that there can really restrict the amount of flow that you're getting. So I always try and feel the waters on that one.
It can go both ways. The thing is with not running one is the engine will run rich trying to gain the temp, which will thin your oil out over time.
Good point. Yeah, because until it gets up to temp,
and then that's gonna wear out your cylinder walls and your piston rings, and then you're gonna burn a lot of oil. I used to run an open thermostat on my last motor.
Is that what you found then? Was that the rings wet?
No. I mean, the timing tensioner had failed, but I did progressively burn oil worse and worse. And I didn't know if it was from drifting or the open thermostat. But I've just always decided to keep one in there ever since then. I started running one towards the end there just because it seemed like it had better consistent cooling. Especially when you're sitting still, the coolant can almost flow too fast to really like get the proper airflow as it goes through the radiator.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You might be detrimental.
So it's like the hot fluid like flies through there so fast that it just goes back into the engine hot.
That's for sure.
Kind of like
how people shut their engine down, let the radiator cool down for a minute, then fire it back up, and then that cold fluid goes through and it get a rapid temp drop.
Eventually, though, it evens out. So, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So
there's different approaches, but in my experience, it seems like the whole like sitting there idling type thing over time, it would kind of build up temperature. Whereas if you actually have a thermostat with a bypass, it will run a little bit lower than normal and just kind of chill there. Unless you're drifting, then it gets to regular temp.
Usually, what I'll do is I don't run a thermostat in mine. Not that I've had any overheating issues, but I've never had a thermostat in it, so I've never run into that. I don't know if it's an issue, but I took it out because of a failure, and then just never put it back in. And the car, in my case, it heats up fairly quick. It's all iron, so it doesn't take too long.
Yeah, once those get heat on them, it doesn't dissipate very quickly.
I'll let the car warm up very briefly, and then we'll go kind of just lap the pits 1 or 2 times just to make sure everything's good. And then I'll go out to the line, and usually I'm one of the first guys out on track Saturday morning. So I'm a bit of a keener. And then
see, and if you're not daily in the car and you're only running it hard, then the whole argument is completely different because you're talking about a specific environment. That's a good
point. And not that we get all that hot. Like I'm assuming that Houston gets significantly hotter than fucking anywhere in Canada. Actually, I know it. I've never been to Houston, but I've been to Dallas.
Yeah.
God damn.
No, anywhere in the South is a lot hotter than where you're at.
Hot days, don't get me wrong, but not anything comparable. But I've never run into that issue. Now that I'm thinking about it, though, I've got this weekend's going to be cold, fairly cold. So it'll be like, I'm trying to think of the conversion. The mornings will probably be like 45 degrees. So yeah, fairly cool.
Oh, okay. And see for us, we might hit 60s or something like that, and people are going to call that cold.
Yeah, we get minus 40 where I live, and that's minus 40 Celsius or Fahrenheit because it's the same.
Yeah.
That's cold.
Yeah. That's
Nothing.
really
Engines don't
cold.
start. Like there's not much you can do. Like brand new cars won't start.
There was this show I ran into on Netflix a while back. It's not on there anymore, I don't think, but it was about these classic airplanes in Canada, and the guys on the show call them piston pumpers. It's like old gasoline powered, World War II airplanes, and these guys run a delivery company, and they would just go flying all over the north. And
oh man, I can't remember.
Yeah, and I can't remember, but the show was like so darn inspirational. Like there were literally like moments I was going through at that point in my life where like my car was broken and stuff, and I'll be like, just push through. Like those dudes are stuck in the middle of nowhere, no help,
fucking Alaska,
freezing their butts off. Yeah, like they're freezing their butts off in ice working on some engine they don't even understand. I was like, this is M20, it's 90 degrees. I may be sweating my butt off, but I can push through this if those guys can do that.
I would rather be I would rather be hot working on a car than cold working on a car, because at least when you're hot, your hands still work.
These guys were like,
these guys were like, oh, my hands aren't even working, and I'm like working on like a 22 cylinder like
rotary,
crazy like round design type motor.
So what you were saying, I mean, you've got a YouTube channel. What is the YouTube channel name?
Yeah, it's
cool.
Slideways Car Club. It's actually youtube.com/Slideways Car Club.
In the podcast notes, anyways. Yeah,
nice.
We'll do the whole obligatory Instagram and shit shout out at the end. Don't worry.
Word.
But so you consume like a lot of drifting media? Like, do you watch a lot of YouTube videos on drifting, or what's your?
I watch a lot of videos.
I watch a lot of videos on drifting. Mainly just like trying to find like footage of myself and seeing like what the lines look like and stuff like that. And like I haven't stopped. Like I still want to improve, and that's part of why like I don't want to add power to the E30, because like people say, oh, you'll be so much better with power, and I'm like, yeah, but I just know if I keep pushing, like I'll break through another barrier.
That's a good point.
Grid life is the biggest testament to that, because I was coming down 10A, throwing clutch kicks in third gear, and then driving up the hill, going through the bottom of the keyhole, downshifting to second, at the top of second gear, just redlining it, like just completely giving it everything it had from third to second, and then just transition and fly through there. And it was really like fun and crazy, and it just felt weird, like to go up that hill in third and like actually having enough momentum to carry it. And like I've just driven a lot of tracks to where like I've kind of practiced that, and then that was the first place where you really had to apply like carrying the momentum through it, which is some advice I got my first year from Will Parsons. He's a former FD driver. He ran the green 8.6.
Yeah. That's usually what I need to hear. Is like, what do they
he's been kind of like a mentor of mine per se. Like he gave me that first advice, like I talked to him at an event and I was like, hey, I see you out here. And that was back when he had the S2000 engine and the 8.6. He was at a Lone Star event. And I was like, I see you're running a little bit lower power. I got an E30 with stock power. What do you think like I should do? And he was like, well, honestly, like I have been watching you and you look like you're pretty comfortable out there. I would just find a way to link the course and like go in with as much momentum as you can and find a way to like make a line that's going to allow you to carry that momentum. And that's always been like every single event I get to where there's a challenging course, where there's something that a low power car shouldn't be able to do. I always go back to that first advice that he gave me, just like find the line, get momentum, and don't lose it and carry it through. And you can't be scared. Like you literally just have to go in and want to have fun and just toss that car in and be ready for whatever's going to happen next. Because when you're entering at those speeds, like you just need to know where the car is going to be when you get it sideways. That's not something Like, you can't just go drive like one summer, toss in second gear entries and be like, oh yeah, I'm a pro now. Like, to toss top a third like that and hold your angle and not fly off the course or smash the wall, you really got to practice
you've
that.
Got to know
a lot, and that's where the seat time comes in play.
You
know,
the limitations of your car and how much side bite it's got and how far you're going to be able to slide that, and where you need to adjust, how you need to adjust. Yeah, there's a lot to it.
So that's where seat.
So that's where seat time comes in play more than how much you build the car.
I was talking about earlier, if you can't afford, I would rather have enough money to have more seat time at a lower quality than to have better seat time, but less of it. So for me, it's a quantity over quality, right?
Like there's tons of videos where people are just tossing it in on 10A and they're straight in the kitty litter, and I didn't have to get pulled out of there one time all weekend. It's the difference between a guy that went and built his car and he can drive really rowdy because his car is built, but he's not finely attuned to that car. And unfortunately, they have lines where they come in and they just don't know what that car is going to do. And next thing you know, what they thought was going to be a rowdy, fun line is just flying into the kitty litter.
To a lot of different guys, for sure.
It sounds unexpected. It's just like, I thought I knew this car, and then it just threw me out there. So, and I've had those moments in the past. I've been at certain events where you got to throw third, and it was like, okay, I did that wrong. That just threw me in the outside zone, and I just like dirt dropped in front of everybody. That was pretty embarrassing.
I take pride in my dirt drops.
But you have to. I mean, when you're like, I'm talking in like you're dirt dropping the whole car off the track at that point, like. Yeah, and you're just got to stop the car in the dirt because you have nowhere to go. But it's like, that's why it's good to go to like a lot of grassroots events and get a lot of seat time and practice, and go to the tracks where they're forgiving, where you're going to be able to like toss that car in and not slam into a wall. That way, if you do like have some crazy story like mine where you end up at Grid Life and you're tossing it in on 10A and the S's, you're not flying off the course and smashing into a wall where it really matters.
Those fucking S's.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm the only one from out of everybody I've talked to that felt like I was comfortable with them by the end of the weekend. It was kind of like iffy, like when you're going up a roller coaster and you get to the top, and then it's not really scary because you're like, I'm on a hill. And maybe you're like the dude that's sitting in the front of the cart, so it kind of starts to go down the hill a little bit. When you get to that point on the downhill in the S's is the only part that was really sketchy to me. So basically I would come in from turn one, and I would be in third from the straight, downshift to third coming in on turn one so I don't fly off the track. And then I would just mat third and go up the hill as fast as I could. And I would look for the little flagger up on the right. And I would see, okay, there's no flag. And I see that crest of the hill, I'm coming up on it. And I would just toss it in with the clutch kick on third and then lift and just kind of let the drift kind of kill the momentum of the car. And then I would get back in on the throttle and go over that rumble strip and come over the hill. But then when I would get to that downhill section, I would kind of straighten up. I'd be like, that looks sketchy. With the tire walls were right there, it'd kind of make me ease up. But the last two sessions Sunday, I just got super comfortable, and I would just go through there and just give it everything it had, and it would get to the point where I was debating okay, I could use momentum in fourth, but it's kind of a little bit more fun to kind of toss it in and just redline third going down the hill. And and then it was cool because once you got that down, you could go down the hill, and then you would transition at the bottom, and the transition at the bottom of the hill is really snappy. It's the fastest transition that I've ever experienced, because you're transitioning at those speeds, and it's whoop-ah! And you're back the other way, and then you instantly go back the other way, and then one more time for that last little rumble strip brim, and then you have the outside zone where the pro dudes to hit the rumble strips with their back tires and stuff. They got enough power to actually go over the rumble strips. I hit those things on the back tire. It's probably gonna kill me.
I figured I'd do this quick. Roger from San Antonio with the E36 is giving you a shout out on YouTube right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Random Hero 2.
Oh, nice.
411. Random Hero 2. Roger, first piece of advice: cut down on the numbers, dude.
Nice. Roger's a cool guy. He's out there in San Antonio. He has a E36. He's rode with me out at some of the tracks. He rode with me at Houston Motorsports Park. It's an oval track, but they have concrete barriers around the infield, and then they have half of the infield paved with like a driveway entrance on each end. So you would kind of run this crazy line where you'll just like blast down the straight, run like a third gear sweeper going around, Maji on the straight, and then like kind of kill your speed and come down into one of the driveways, and then do like this S course through the infield, and then like go back out around the bank and go back to the entrance where you came through. And it like I saw more cars total at that place than any other place I've been at. I made a video, and like there's like 3 cars totaled in that video, like a 240 and a truck, or 2 of them that are like really bad.
Yeah, there's definitely those notorious tracks out there, notorious corners at least.
This was one where
Like they had gone there, like Lone Star had gone there way back in the day, and a few people totaled their cars, and then like just nobody drifted there for a long time. And then they did one event, and it was good. Like nobody screwed their car up. It went good. And then they did another event, and it was like a graveyard. And they literally started calling the infield the graveyard because there was like, okay, so like 2/3 of the infield was paved, and then like 1/3 over here is grass. So like people would total their cars, and they'll be like, just put it in the graveyard till the event's over so we can keep everybody on the track going. And they would just run 1 or 2 cars at a time. And it got to the point, Roger's in the video of that event where he's riding with me. But it gets to the point where like I literally can pull off track, bust a U-turn, and I'm back in line because everybody was too intimidated to drive. Like they were that scared from seeing all the cars total that everybody like packed up, had their stuff on the trailers, and was going home. And like there were like maybe 10 people still there just hanging out with their cars on the trailers. And I still had like my full pit area, like changing tires, just having a good time. Like I'm like, it's scary, guys, but like if you've done this before, like just get your money, like seat time. You paid to be here. Like that's the way I saw it. It was like I paid a driver's fee to be here, even if it's only my track. And like they ended up shutting the event down. Like the track owner himself, I'm like sitting there in line, and he's like pulling up in the golf cart from towing in one of the cars, and he's like, "Last run," and I just like go and send it. And like, yeah, and it got to the point like they were letting me run open format. Like I ran the track backwards. I ran through the infield the other way. They're like, do whatever you want, man. Like there's no line.
Yeah, that's wicked. I'm waiting for this event this weekend because it's the last one of the year for us. Well, I think there's one more, but like for this event series anyways. And I'm going to just drive the Saturday because the Sunday at this event is notorious for guys writing their cars off. Because there's only one wall.
Oh.
And the issue is the way the track is, it comes across, and then there's a small drainage ditch about 12 inches wide, and then it's the wall. So if you go into wall tap it and you straighten out at all, your back tires dig into that drainage ditch, and you get eaten by the wall. And like,
oh, it's kind of like that's almost like what happens with bank suck.
It's kind of the similar idea. Like if you hit it on a good angle, you'll be fine. But if you pussyfoot it at all, that's it. Your car gets eaten. The back tire gets sucked in, and then the front whips around, and then you spin along the wall. So I'm
just getting this mental image from like Initial D where he did the trick where he like bounced over the little like gutter thing, and then the guy behind him was like, "Oh, I think I saw what he did," and then he like gets his car like stuck in there, and then ends up crashing. I don't know why, it just made me think about that.
I've never watched a movie, an episode.
Oh,
I know
man.
I need to. I get people who shit on me all the time, but I'll watch.
Dude,
if I watch the movies, like if I just watch the movies, I'll get enough of it that I can understand what it's about.
I'm gonna tell whoever told you that
to shove it, because the movies are crap and they don't do the series justice at all. And you're gonna get the gist of it. Like the movies are like a commercial that summarize. Okay, you know how like movie previews nowadays basically summarize the whole movie? That's what the movie is for the show, but it's like a sucky version of it, like some like B-class movie production like tried to make a preview for like Marvel movies. So you got like a Halloween costume Spider-Man running around for the preview of the next Marvel battle movie or whatever, you know.
How many seasons?
I don't know how many seasons, but they're all free on YouTube. Funimation doesn't have it posted anywhere anymore, so they have their YouTube channel just streaming it for free.
And is it?
But I got obsessed. Like before my first season drifting, I ran across the show on Netflix, and I would just like watch every episode, like binge watch it after work. And there was this U-turn under like, if you've ever lived in a major city with feeder roads, they have U-turns that go under the interstates in the major city parts. And there was this U-turn right before I got home where I would come down from 3rd and shift to the top of 2nd and kind of let the shift lock initiate for me. And then I would throttle through and do the whole U-turn and go home. And like, I was just like inspired from like watching Initial D, and I would just hit it like faster and faster to the point that I was hitting it in like 3rd and downshifting to 2nd. And it was just like this crazy thing, and like it kind of like carried through with me until like maybe like a year later I was like, okay, you can't really apply all of that stuff to drifting. But it kind of sparked a flame for a little bit there. I'm not gonna lie, that's a really good show. So like if you're into drifting, I think you should definitely watch it.
Like, does it have subtitles?
I
don't like reading my TV.
Oh gosh.
My wife loves watching everything with subtitles, and it drives me fucking insane because all I do is watch the subtitles.
Get your wife to read it for you.
Gosh, get your wife to read it for you. I don't know. I think it's subbed. The OG show is I'm pretty sure is subbed. My parents divorced and remarried when I was young, and my mom ended up marrying like, you know, into like Easterner type dudes and stuff. So I've been watching subtitled movies since I was a young kid. It doesn't really bother me because like I could watch like a Bollywood movie where they have like some off-spin version of Terminator, like liquid metal and the whole 9 yards.
Speaking of, and it is hilarious.
Dude, I watched that movie and like I will say like parts of it where they're trying to be funny, where they're trying to be serious is like funny. But then there's parts of it where it's action, where it's like, dude, I feel like I'm watching like a James Bond action sequence. Right? Like, there was one part where they're like driving a boat and they like ramp over like something with a road or something. I don't know. It's crazy, man. I just have some distorted memory.
More people viewing their movies than Hollywood does. That's correct. Yeah, I can't remember what like exactly the stat was. Like if it was more people in theaters or more total purchases of movies, I can't remember, but. Okay.
It's more total purchases.
You know
yeah, like, oh, dude, like they're literally like a little like Indian, like homegrown, like buy your groceries here just like you do back home in your country type stores, and like they have like movie rentals and movie sales and stuff, and people can like get their Bollywood like here in the States too. So like, you know, they're like shipping them over by the crate, and people are just buying them here, buying them there, everywhere. You know, it's just kind of like drifting. You got this diversity of like some of the people that send me a friend request on Facebook. They're just in these random parts of the world, and you're like, how did this person even find me? And, you know, it's always leads back to drifting.
Like subgroup of people who love the channel from India, somewhere in India, and in Ireland. And it's like obviously Canada, US, you know, we've got our little fan bases and stuff like that. But when I check the analytics, there's like Ireland and India actually hold a pretty good percentage of our views, and I'm like, all right, well that's kind of cool. And like I know a couple people in Ireland, so it makes kind of sense. But I know like one dude in India, so unless he's just like pounding the pavement and fucking getting the word out, I don't know what happened.
I don't know. It's like
I don't know. It's like certain keywords or like a certain video. Like I've gone on my analytics and I've just for my YouTube and there's just like all these different countries and I'm like, how would they even know? Like some autoplay video from some other video, autoplay, and then they laid it on me.
Man, whoever I can get the word out there is the way I'm gonna do it. That's for sure. So
like it's funny, like you'll have some. I don't know, like if you don't commit your channel to one thing, you might have a few random like videos from like a flood or like an oil change or something, and sometimes those videos will like keyword hit. Like I put a video for
an oil change on my wife's minivan. It's an '04 Kia Sedona. Apparently, I was the first one to ever make a video on an oil change for a '04 Kia Sedona. It's like almost 10,000 views.
Crazy.
Less than a year old. It's like my most banging video as far as like view duration and like keeping the crowd staying on the screen and not fast forwarding through it and the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, it's just a dumb oil change video.
Yeah.
You know, like to me, it's the least important video on the channel. I just made it, you know, for fun.
Time lapse of us cleaning out my buddy's garage, and we, as a joke, put his girlfriend as the thumbnail, and it's like our 4th most viewed video.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, it's literally
Lord.
a time lapse of us cleaning out a single fucking car garage in the suburbs. But because it has a girl in the profile picture, immediately it's now.
Oh, dude, the clickbait,
I don't know,
man.
I have no idea. It's so frustrating for somebody who like puts in serious effort into like thumbnails and tagging and getting metadata right and SEO and like.
Dude, I know like we have like the video projects that we did together with my friends out in Texas, and they're like really great videos, and they're just like buried in like these other videos that like to me are like crap. But then, like, the crap videos are nearing, like, 10,000 views and stuff like that, where it's, like, a flood or, like, an oil change.
Me all the time they're like, oh, man, you know, it'd be so cool to be, like, a pro driver. And I'm like, man, I have an entire series on what it's like being a pro driver. Like, every event that Riley Sexsmith has gone to, we have a 3 or 4 part video series of that event. And, like, you get to see, like, the road trip down, getting everything ready to go, actually racing, and then what happens when the racing's over. And people are like, man, that'd be so cool if I could like see what it's like to be like, you know, in Pro 2. And I'm like, fuck you for not watching these videos. Like,
right?
It's I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I've got a buddy of mine that works as a social media director, not coordinator. I screwed this up once. He got really mad at me. And actually didn't get that mad, but like I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to like demote you. But he's gone over some of this stuff, and he's like, yeah, man, you got to keep doing it, and eventually you'll get lucky. Like,
that's literally how it works.
Fuck.
That's literally how it works. Like, that's why I make the dumb crummy videos, because you have to keep doing it. And the dumb crummy videos have been the ones that got lucky too. So
I did one where it was.
It's like you never know.
Life. I don't know if you saw it. Probably not. But it was. No worries.
I try to watch what I can. You're actually one of the few channels that I like search when I'm actually on there nowadays. I do a lot of music for the most part, though.
All slow motion drifting to classical music. And it's like
I did watch the whole video on that.
I spent 6 hours, 8 hours maybe editing that video, and it's like I know it got shit views, and I knew people would either love it or hate it. And I get people like, "That's the dumbest thing ever. Classical music has nothing to do with drifting." And I get some people like, "Man, like that is beautiful." Like I was timing like.
I think a lot of it's like the crowd from Grid Life. Like you gotta hit that fast pace. Like I don't know, there was that one promo video, and then like I randomly saw it. Like I didn't even know Piston Head Productions existed, and I was riding in. I don't know, I was like in a truck or in a golf cart or something, and I looked over at the screen, and Phil from Garage Moon Power was looking at Instagram, and Piston Head Productions had popped up, and that one video where like it's like a Grid Life promo, and there's like music playing, and it like kind of ends with that scene where I'm driving and you can just like hear the crowd screaming. Like it just had like this really like pumped up feeling, like a preview to like a movie, and it was like I want to see that movie. So then, like, the only thing is, like, when you did release the slow-mo classical, it was, like, really awesome and artistic. But, like, if anybody who saw that other one had the same sensation I did, like, I want to see that movie that I saw the preview to, then they would be totally let down if they didn't have enough respect for the art of what you did with the other video.
Because it's like, what do you do with all the Grid Life content? Because there's a time, right? So we did, like, a vlog where it was, like, you know, here's all this...
Yeah, I watched your vlog stuff. You guys have like your own personal failures and stuff.
Oh yeah. And I was like, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to try something that I haven't seen before. I've never seen somebody mix drifting with classical music. It might have been done, but I haven't seen it. So I could probably go back and take all of that footage and literally just remove that song and put in some fucking EDM song, and it would get.
And everybody would be like, "Oh, this is the fucking greatest. This is so lit."
Like, I don't know. I'm just trying a little bit of everything. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll mix vlog footage with, you know, these like cinematic drifting sequences. And then I'm like, well, maybe I should just do cinematic drifting sequences and vlogs separate. And I'm like, I don't know. I've tried a bunch of different things and see what eventually something hits.
I think, and I don't know, like, this is kind of offbeat, but my favorite style of video that I've ever seen is going like kind of back to my teenage years, is back when they had that kind of underground rock band. It was Bam Margera's brother was the drummer, CKY, and they pumped out those videos of Bam, and you know, Ryan and all those guys. He's dead now, of course. Everybody knows about that. But like they did all those crazy videos and stuff, and the cool thing is like they would kind of do like a little skit or whatever, which would be like the equivalent of a vlog, and then they would go and do like their little like deal where they're like music blaring, shopping carts flying off, or skateboarding or whatever. So I kind of have always liked certain YouTube videos where they're drifting and stuff, where they kind of like they do a little vlog stuff and then they get into the drifting, but like they don't bury you for more than like maybe like a minute at a time with the vlog stuff, so that you're kind of like going back and forth. So it's like a TV show or like that old school like late 90s, early 2000s style. They got lost.
It's tough. It is what it is. Like I make it as much for me and my friends as I do for anybody else. So if people happen to like it, then awesome. I would like it if more people like it.
Yeah.
But I would like it if more people like it.
Oh, that's kind of like the same thing Aaron Losey told me at one point, conversing back and through Messenger. You know, we're talking about YouTube videos and stuff, and he's like, you know, I mainly do what I like, which is, you know, mostly these, you know, 240s or whatever, and you know, a lot of people like it, but some people don't, you know, and you just kind of get what you get with it.
And he puts out good content, and I don't watch all the videos. I watch every once in a while because I'm subscribed to fucking way too many people, and shit gets lost. And
and the algorithms change. Right. Oh, and the algorithms change, and the way the notifications are set up now. I know it's all a bunch of crap now. YouTube went downhill.
Right now, YouTube, what I get from YouTube is more than just the views. Like, I get companies that reach out. I've gotten contracted work because of YouTube, so it's like, yeah, YouTube's awesome, and I wish I could make a career off of it, but it's what comes from it. Yeah, it's a resume.
It's more of a tool.
Because I've had people who,
like I said, I use my video links for my YouTube channel for specific videos to show what I could do with my car from my YouTube channel. So,
and you know what? I enjoy doing podcasts almost more than I enjoy doing the videos, because I am a born talker, and if somebody gives me a platform that I'm allowed to talk for fucking an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes straight, then I'm gonna jump all over it.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about cars. Yeah, I mean, you talk about cars. Most car guys. It's pretty easy topic.
Yeah, and I've gotten to
most car guys anyway.
Sound like too much self promo. I've gotten to talk to people that I never thought I would ever get a chance to talk to, like Tony Angelo and Matt Field and Farouk and you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just been cool. It's just been cool.
You'll never, yeah. Farouk's pretty cool, man. Dude, Farouk's pretty cool, man. His former crew chief had like messaged me. It was like, man, you were looking good out there. Like, I had more fun watching the E30 than I did Farouk. Had like kind of like joking with me or whatever. And then I added Farouk, and like the first thing when he saw my friend request, he messaged me. It was like, dude, you killed it at Grid Life. And I was like, oh man, like for a pro driver to be saying that, like that's so awesome.
And if anybody's listening hasn't gone back to listen to the Farouk episodes, only a few back. Fuck, man, super cool dude. Super cool dude. He's been through absolute craziness with that car, but yeah, really good. But anyways, man, I actually do have to wrap this up. It's getting pretty late here, and yeah, but I really appreciate you coming on to give me the shout-outs of all the links and stuff where people can find everything Richard J.
Richard J. Hixon.
There you go.
Richard J. Hixon. And I've pretty much everything is Slideways Car Club, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. It's all
Cool.
it's all .com/Slideways Car Club.
I'll put all the links down. I'm hoping this recording worked well. We're live on YouTube for the first time, so that's awesome. You get that honor. But yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And so far things have gone well. I got a bit more work to do, but I'll get it down. But thanks again, man, for coming on. I really appreciate it. Keep up everything. If you ever want to come up to Canada, as long as you give me a couple weeks notice, you're more than welcome. I recommend coming up in February and come ice drifting. If you want to do something that you've never done before, that's really neat. I'm trying to get like a big group of drivers and YouTubers and stuff like that together for a weekend, sometime maybe mid to late February. But
I've seen a few videos of ice drifting. That's pretty interesting.
I've seen a few videos of ice drifting. That's pretty intriguing stuff. It's super low speed, and they're
great
just
way to learn new techniques.
Super comical when you make contacts.
It's inexpensive. It's a great way to learn and practice. So I recommend it to everybody. Just hit me up. There's way back in our YouTube. There's a video of us going out ice drifting, and we had a blast. But anyways, Thanks again, man. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
No worries, man. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye.
No worries, man. Have a good night.